Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we are going to be continuing our exploration on animatable properties. And in this video, we're going to look at color and hue rotation animations. Okay, so SwiftUI colors are animatable, and you can change from one color to another with a simple animation modifier. Now, let's check out an example where we're going to create a color changing every second, and we're going to add it to a rounded rectangle which will act as a background for this for a view. Okay, so we're going to create a new view. I'm going to call this one color example. Color animation example. And what we're going to do is we are going to call this guy right here. All right, now first thing first, we're going to create our timer publisher. And we're going to create a state property for color. We're going to initialize with the mint color. Okay, next we're going to create a Z stack, and this Z stack is basically going to have a rectangle which is going to act as a background. So we're going to create a rectangle. We're going to set the foreground style as the color variable because we are changing this color. So we are going to basically use this color state variable. We also want to make sure that we ignore all the safe areas so the rectangle can expand as much as possible, basically covering the whole screen. Next, we're going to create a text, which is going to be devtechie.com. And font, I said the foreground color, and the font is going to be large. Title, we're going to add some padding around this as well. Actually, not need the padding because we are not adding any background to this. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add animation to this by simply saying dot animation, and we want to add the animation ease in and out for the duration of 2 seconds. Okay, so our animation is going to run, basically the interpolation itself is going to complete over in 2 seconds. But if you notice, our timer is going to basically publish every second. Reason I'm doing this because in between our colors are going to transition, so it's going to be basically the current animation is going to be interrupted in mid, and there's going to be a new color that's available, so our view is going to get busy basically changing to that color. So it creates a rather nice effect, but you can try out with different combinations, and I would highly recommend that. Okay, so we're going to say value that we are going to be animating on is going to be color. Now, so far, nothing is going to happen because we are not changing any color. Our color is pretty static in the nature at this point, but we're going to add an observer basically subscribing to the publisher that we have created for the timer. So we're going to say on receive of publisher, which is timer. We're not going to care about what the output it gives us. We're simply going to take the color and create a random color out of red, green, and blue colors. So we're going to take double. We're going to say double.random in 0.1 because colors value for red, green, and blue, they basically range as a floating point number between 0 and 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and paste it for rest of 2 colors. Okay, now with that change, notice that our color animation has already started on the previous side, and you can see the color is slowly transitioning from one to another, and it's basically picking up those changes and interpolating the changes in between. All right, so that's your color animation. Next thing that we're going to talk about, which is another animatable property, and this one is called HueRotation. Okay, so hue is one of the main property of the color. Hue is typically represented as a quantitative value by a single number, often corresponding to an angular position around a central axis of the color wheel. So basically, center of the color wheel is your hue. So hue is applied as an angle, and when you change that angle, you're essentially changing the color. Okay, so let me show you an example by creating another view, and I'm going to copy what we have and we're going to use that. So you have color animation example in the source code along with the hue rotation. So hue rotation example. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to copy the whole thing, and I'm going to paste it right here, and I'm going to call, instead of this one, I'm going to call hue rotation example. Right now you're not going to see any difference, but soon enough we're going to start seeing the difference. Okay, so first thing first, we're going to change the state variable from color to an angle. So it's going to be an angle, and it's not going to be color type, it's going to be a double type. Okay, and we're going to actually define a single color. So we're going to set our foreground to a particular color. Let me choose orange color, and we're going to simply leave it at that. Okay, so we're going to have foreground style as the orange color. Now we're going to modify this. We are basically animating over the value of angle, and what we are doing here is we are simply saying angle is equal to double dot random, and in the wheel the angles range from 0 to 360. So that's going to be the range that we want to randomize our numbers for, from. Okay, so as soon as our view updates, you're going to see the animation has stopped because we are pretty much static. The on receive is happening on the angle. Angle is changing, but we are not using that value anywhere. So let's go ahead and use that with a hue rotation. And we're going to say the angle is going to be in degrees, and we're going to pass the angle value. Now, as soon as we pass the angle value, you're going to start seeing the change of color. Again, this is animating, basically interpolating between two different values, and you can notice that the color is changing because we are actually changing the angles on the color wheel. So if you have a color wheel lying around somewhere, go ahead and try it out, rotate, and you have a window usually in the color wheel that actually shows you the color that you've rotated to, angles and rotation. That's how it goes. All right, so this has an interesting effect. Why? Because animating color gradients, so hue animation is, first of all, hue rotation is one of the way to change the angles, but it's also used on gradient animation. SwiftUI 4 introduced a gradient property on the color, which lets you create basic gradient effects out of solid color. So for example, I can say that I want to add a gradient by simply saying dot gradient. Okay, actually, you know what, before I change this example, I want to make another view out of this. Okay, and I'm going to say gradient animation example. Okay, and I wanna basically use gradient animation example for the change. Okay, so if we add a foreground color gradient, there's a slight gradient that's been added down at the bottom. So this color is lighter and this color is slightly darker, adding that linear gradient top to bottom. Now, If you want to see it more clearly, well, we can actually add a circle, which is gonna follow the same rules, circle behind the text. So basically, this is gonna be a circle following the same rule, like, you know, having the foreground color for the color dot orange dot gradient. Okay, and you're gonna basically see that color being basically the background being changed. But this is not interesting. Let me first of all make this big and make this interesting by changing the circle's color as well. Okay, so we're gonna apply HueRotation on the circle as well with angle degree. And as soon as we do that, you're gonna not only see the change in the color, basically the HueRotation, but also the gradient itself. And this is by far the easiest way to change or animate gradients. Now, the other way, if you're like, you know, if you're changing gradient colors from one color to a different color entirely, for example, red and blue, in those cases, you'd have to use Animatable modifier to write your own logic to interpolate between those two colors, because gradients natively, or like, you know, out of the box, they don't support animations. But if you want to achieve a simple gradient animation, combine your color animation and your HueRotation basically to achieve this result. All right, with that, we have reached the end of this video as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in another video. Thank you.